Well, my friends, there are some passages in Scripture that are just beyond understanding, and frankly, even beyond defense. And our Genesis passage today is one of them. I cringe every time it comes up in the lectionary, and I cringe every time we hear it read, and thanks for reading it so well. Yeah, we've read it so many times, and still it's so hard. It's so hard to hear. It's so hard to understand. It's so hard to even try to make any sense of. And yet, lots of people point out that this is one of the foundational stories of all three monotheistic religions. A story like this one only appears here. There are no parallel stories. You can't read anything or do any research on this passage without a reminder that Søren Kierkegaard wrote an entire book about this, offering a couple of different scenarios to explain it. And the writers with a great collection of essays talk about this. In Fear and Trembling, Søren Kierkegaard devoted an entire book to it. He recalls how he heard this Bible story as a child, and how the older he got, the more he heard, the more his enthusiasm for the story grew, and the less and less he understood it. He puts himself in Abraham's shoes and shudders as he contemplates how Abraham must have thought, what he must have thought, how he must have felt, and how he acted. We try to like this or pull out some kind of meaning that makes us feel better. We say the binding of Isaac is about trusting God. The story shows the faith of Abraham and even of Isaac. Neither one of them protest, they just go. But really, when you think about it, don't you shudder at the fact that God would even ask? Take your son, your only son, the one you love, and go on a 3-day journey. Imagine that. 3 days of thinking about this horrible thing. 3 days of making sure that Isaac is fed, making sure that he's tucked in safe at night, only to realize what will happen at the end. Now, scholars have noted over the years that Abraham is silent in it all. We don't hear of a protest or even a question. And Abraham did question God in other moments in his life, but in this one, we don't hear that. He just says, "Here I am." I couldn't type that as the title without a question mark after it. That's why I put the question mark, because if it were me, it would be a question. It makes me wonder. We see this as a testing of Abraham's life, but might we also see this as a testing of God's trustworthiness? During those 3 days, while Abraham wondered what was at the end of this, and even if Isaac would return with him, and if Abraham himself would return, did he wonder if he would ever be able to trust God again? Even in those last steps to the top, did he wonder if his trust and faith in God, his very relationship with God, would be sacrificed right alongside it? Did he wonder if his faith would die on that altar too? I don't know about you, but I would have. The truth is, I wouldn't have gone. I would have run as far away as possible and told God no. I don't even know about you. I don't know about you, but I would have said, God, if you want me to sacrifice my child, then you'll have to do it, but you'll have to take me first. Does anybody else feel the same about it? It's okay if you do. Thank you for recognizing the difficulty here. The truth is, friends, I can't put myself in this story, and I talk a lot about put yourself in this story. Who do you relate to? How would you? I can't put myself in this story at all. I can't ask what I would have done because I wouldn't have made it on the journey. I would have run away. And if I did find myself in a position to have this conversation with God about this, I would have said, how dare you even ask me to do this? You expect us to be a community set apart, a community where people will know that we belong to you because of love, and you expect me to act like everyone else, and you tell me to carry this atrocious practice that everyone else is doing? I often wonder how the story would have been different if Abraham wouldn't have been silent. But he did go. And perhaps the story remained in the lore of the ancients because throughout the ages, we needed to know that God would provide. Whether we argue and protest or not, and whether we are patient or not, and whether we are discerning or not. The Reverend Dr. Joy J. Moore made an interesting statement about this text, about the ram in the bushes, which is a whole other sermon, frankly. Notice that Abraham goes up to that mountain, prepares everything, and even though he said, "We will come back down," perhaps implying that he knows he won't have to kill Isaac, he still raises the knife. An angel has to jump in and stop him. Meanwhile, there's a ram right there in the bushes. Did he even look? Or was he so focused on this task that he just trudged through without noticing what was going on around him? Did he even think to look in the bushes? Friends, it seems to me that this may be like a tiny redeemable moment in this story. Because I wonder, when faced with difficult moments in our faith, when faced with moments of either taking a stand about something, about offering hospitality and inclusivity, or turning away and shunning and judging, do we trudge through because of old ways of thinking? Do we hold on to ideas of how things are missing in the new thing that God is doing? Are we so laser focused on what we're doing, what we've always done, that we refuse to see what is going on right before our eyes? What would we see if we just pulled back the branches even a little? What would we notice if we wiped away the notions that we have? What if we stopped living in scarcity and thought about living in abundance, knowing that we just have to pay attention? What provision is God offering us that we are too stubborn to see? How many sacrifices are we willing to make before we notice that God is offering something different right in front of us? You know, it is true. There are a lot of scriptures about including others. There are a lot of scriptures about realizing that the journey will not be easy, but that God will be with us. There are a lot of scriptures about turning from our ways to a new way that opens up new possibilities. And it's true that the reason there are that many is because that's what we need to hear over and over again. And I'm afraid that we get caught up in our own stubbornness too often, with a push in the name of Christianity to shun people who don't fit our categories that we create, frankly, to claim that, you know, we can do whatever we want if we put God's name on it. If we misinterpret a scripture a little bit, we can create ideas that fit our own and not God's. And we are often not willing to listen to the experiences of others and to be nudged and changed a little bit. We look away from the things that happen in the world because we think that they don't affect us as we are going ahead with an atrocious sacrifice. We are walking up that mountain with firewood in our arms, and it seems that we are more than willing to carry out a ridiculous act rather than notice the provision of promise and love that God has right next to us, that we just walked past with blinders on. We might have to move some debris out of the way to see it, but my friends, it is there. God calls us to have faith, and at the same time, God calls us to notice what is in front of us and to claim it. And that sometimes takes patience and discernment and willingness to do tough work. And that's hard, isn't it? We are a people longing for easy answers. And God calls us to better answers. We just have to sit with it and pray and work together. perhaps if we chose to stand and shout, "Here I am," alongside those in need, alongside situations that are desperate, we would actually find what God has called us to do. But that's not easy. It wasn't in Abraham's time. It wasn't in Jesus' time either. And when Jesus sent those disciples out, as Matthew recounts, he is sending them into a world that won't welcome them. A world that holds tightly to old ways of doing things. A world that refuses to listen to their prophetic word of radical love and of grace. A world that will be harsh and will hurt them. But he does it anyway. Why? Because in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the struggle, there are signs of grace. There will be some who turn away, but there will be some who show hospitality and who are yearning for the grace that divine love offers. And in those moments, even small, those are the moments that turn into movements. They are the moments that transform, the moments that are provisions of grace in a world that so desperately needs it. And so the question is, will we look? Will we uncover what God provides for us, and then will we answer the call that God has placed in our lives? And will we, instead of asking the question of are others worthy, will we stand with and say, yes, here I am. Now, friends, this is tough, but it is our good news. And it is what we are called to live and to be and to offer in this world. And that's not just good news for today, it is good news for every day. Let it be so.